With Phase 4 Season of Discovery right around the corner, I thought I'd make a quick little prediction video of where I think each healer, tank, and DPS kind of falls on the grand scheme of things. Every class seems to be very viable and pretty strong at the moment, but some classes are definitely overperforming compared to others. So let's start off with the healers. I would have to say Priest is looking like the most overpowered healer at the moment, and Disc or Holy, whatever you play, I think just the fact to be able to permanently shield the raid with soul warding being added into the game, as well as getting binding heal as like an alternative if you want to swap between those two runes. And now that I think about it, you could probably just run two priests, have both of them run soul warding, or maybe do some kind of like soul warding and have the other one run binding heal or something like that, so that one of them's in charge of just shielding the raid and the other one is in charge of just like main tank heals or something like that. Holy Pally looks really strong too right now because of the consecrate heal. I would argue they're either A or S tier. And not to mention they're the best tank healers. And if there's a lot of single target damage where the tank is the only one taking damage, they are the best at healing the tank. Next, I would have to say Mage is probably B tier. They're not getting any new runes that are going to make them heal incredibly strong. You will be able to use Rewind Time now since it's moved into the Bracer slot, but you lose Molten Armor, so that's kind of annoying. But I mean, you're playing Arcane, so you kind of go Mage Armor anyways. The only other thing you'll have access to is you'll get a little bit more hit rating with the new ring runes, but I don't think that's going to make them super game changing, and the Arcane spec is really weak right now anyways, so I don't think that they're a super desired healer to be playing right now. And then I would say Resto Druid and Resto Shaman are probably like right here. And this could obviously change depending on the fights, but yeah, Holy and Disc are insane. Holy is doing a little bit better than Disc at the moment. It's kind of like this, but you're just going to play whatever spec is stronger as a healer. You'll probably go Disc anyway, so you can PI the caster DPS and stuff like that. This could all change, but just from the data on the PTR, this is how it's looking at the moment. Next, we're going to get into the tanks. As of right now, Rogue is doing the most amount of single target damage, right behind Prot Pally. These two tanks are looking crazy good at the moment. Rogue, however, doesn't have as much survivability as a Prot Pally, but they are insanely strong at the moment. I'd probably put it like this. And then right behind that, I would put the Demo Lock and Shaman, probably A tier. I'd argue it's like, maybe like this again, like Prot Warrior does a lot of damage with the new stance, but it's just like, it's definitely lower than these, I feel like. And then Feral Druid is kind of whatever. Being able to AoE swipe and hit more targets is going to be nice, but the amount of DPS that these bring to the table is really what matters. There's not really any incredibly hard-hitting fights at the moment. Maybe in the harder difficulties for Molten Core, you maybe want a Prot Pally, or a Prot Warrior rather, because they have a bunch of defensives and stuff like that, and then the Rogue looks a lot worse, and maybe Feral Druid goes up one, and it's more like this. But all the tanks are viable, and it's really hard to like put them on a tier list and be like, oh, this one's B, but it's not that much worse than these, right? So it's very hard to rank these, to be completely honest. I'm trying to think of any defensives they have and any like externals that they can get that they get a lot more benefit from, like a pain suppression or something like that. But I think it's gonna look something like this, and you probably swap these around. It's hard to say what's S tier too as well, because we don't really know how the encounters are gonna work. We might have some crazy hard-hitting fights and Prot Pally is just going to look insane, and then Warrior might look insane too because of the defensives, right? And finally, let's talk about the DPS. Assassination Rogue is without a doubt looking the most insane at the moment, looking really good, having Fan of Knives now, going to be really solid on multi-target encounters, going to be really solid on overall trash damage as well. Just without a doubt the top performing spec at the moment. And then right behind that, I would say Combat is a little bit below it, but not incredibly far from that damage threshold, but you're just going to play whatever spec is the best, so maybe certain fights Combat will do better, maybe certain fights Assassination will do better, so you'll just have to see and feel that out. The next class that's going to go into the S tier has to be the Fire Mage. Going to be insane on overall damage without a doubt. Having uncapped Living Bomb, just being able to put that on every single target is going to be just nuts. The swap for Hot Streak being moved off of that rune slot into the Helm slot is going to open up some new possibilities as well. And not to mention the extra little bit of fire damage you're going to be able to cast Fire Blast in between your main primary rotation. They're just looking really good, and at the moment they are second on the PTR for the Test Work fight, right behind the Assassination Rogue. Next, let's talk about our Hunter friends. They have seen a lot of changes. The Melee Hunter was easily in the S tier 2 weeks ago, and now it is somewhere down here, either in the B or C tier. And then the Range Hunter is looking phenomenal. It's easily at the top of the A tier, or even in S tier. I arguably want to put it in the S tier just because of how much utility and stuff they bring to the raid, as well as the AoE is going to be pretty nuts from them as well. Survival is probably right behind the Melee Hunter. If I had to rank it, I think Melee Hunter is actually worse than this at the moment. If you ask me, I think that the Melee Hunter is actually even worse than that. And then the BM Hunter, I don't really have any evidence or data to like back up how strong this class is, but I'm just not going to rank it for that reason. We're going to talk about the Warlock next. The Warlock is easily in the A tier, probably the top of the A tier. I wouldn't put them in the S tier with these guys, but they're pretty close and very competitive in terms of DPS on single target. The Affliction Warlock is probably B tier or even C tier. It is just not performing incredibly well. If you look on more of your average percentile, it is a little bit closer to the Destruction Warlock, but in terms of the PTR, it is down here. Let's go back and talk about the mage specs real quick. I kind of jumped ahead and just started rambling. Let's talk about the mage. Arcane Mage is without a doubt the lowest performing spec at the moment, and it's not even close. Putting them in the D tier and saying they are close to these guys is just an overstatement. They are without a doubt the lowest performing DPS. They're even getting beat by Warlocks playing Demonology as a DPS spec, so it's bad. And then Frost Mage, there's not too much data on it because everyone's playing Fire since that's the cool new spec to play. But if I had to guess, they're probably somewhere in B tier or maybe even C tier. I know I said I wouldn't rank the BM Hunter, but I can see a place where people will play Frost Mage and BM Hunter will get played a lot less. But yeah, if I had to rank it, I would have to guess here. So this is just a complete guess without any data or anything on the PTR. Next, let's talk about the Druids. The Balanced Druid is probably somewhere down here. It does get a new AoE, it finally has Starfall added into the game, but it is still going to be underperforming on single target compared to the rest of these specs. And speaking of the other specs, the Feral Druid is looking really good right now. Being able to AoE swipe now, having a very high burst window, it's going to look very good on single target. Let's talk about our Shamans. The Elemental Shaman isn't doing too well in terms of single target. However, they do have a new rune that's going to allow them to spam Chain Lightning. So on some of these AoE fights, they have an insanely high burst window. They're going to look incredible on fights like Lucifron, Gehennas, or even Sulfuron. I would argue that you'll see them shoot up to A tier or even S tier for those fights, especially if they're super short. But in terms of single target DPS, they're definitely falling short compared to everyone else. And sort of the same thing with the Enhanced Shaman, it's definitely performing pretty low on single target, especially as of last week. It was like here, but I think they'll probably fall somewhere in the middle. They're not as strong as last phase, but they're still very competitive on overall damage. For the Ret Pally, I think that a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but I think they're easily going to go into the bottom of the A tier, maybe even the top of B. I'll just put them here for now and then I'll adjust it later. I think they're very competitive in terms of the damage classes that they're next to. I think they're right next to all these classes on the A tier. But I cannot say the same thing for the Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest is probably right here in the middle of B tier, maybe even lower. However, they are a very strong support class and you're always going to want to have one in your raid. Finally, let's talk about everyone's favorite class, the Warrior. Without a doubt, the Arms Warrior is beating the Ellie Shaman, but it's not nearly as strong as these classes in the C tier, so I think it's a fair ranking to put it right here. I can't say the same thing about the Fury Warrior. It's without a doubt at the top of the B tier and pushing into the bottom of the A tier. On certain encounters and certain players that are playing the Fury Warrior, you're going to see them shoot up to the top of the meters, probably somewhere in the top of the A tier or in the middle of it. But on average, I think it's going to look something like this. And that's pretty good considering all of the nerfs and changes that they've received. They're still performing incredibly well with all of those nerfs. And now I will do a quick little adjustment and maybe tweak some of these around. Affliction Lock can go up a bit, and I think the Frost Mage would be safe to pull it down a tier. Balanced Druid's fine here. Ellie Shaman's fine there. I wouldn't want to bring it up. I could maybe put Ret Paladin down a tier to make it a little bit more fair. Maybe put the Warrior in the bottom of A tier. I think this is fair. I don't think anything else is going to do better than the Warrior in this section, and I don't think anything in this is going to do better. Some encounters, the Frost Mage might get a bunch of good RNG with their Fingers of Frost procs and stuff like that, so you could see them pop up here every now and then. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to put them a little bit below them, but not nearly on the same tier as this. Yeah, I think this is good. This will be my finished result and just final adjustments to the tier list. That's about it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this tier list, if you would move certain things around, if you think some classes are a bit overrated or certain classes I might be just sleeping on and they're super underrated, they're gonna pop off this tier. Love to hear what you guys think. And as always, like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.
Too soon. You have awakened me too soon, Executus.